Welcome to the Measure Success podcast, where I talk with top leaders about effective strategies that inspire success. Very excited to have with us Mark Mears, a visionary business leader and consultant and author of the Purposeful Growth Revolution. If you're watching here on YouTube, thanks, Mark, for raising it as well. He has over 35 years of experience driving innovation and growth for iconic brands such as PepsiCo, McDonald's, and the Cheesecake Factory. As Chief Growth Officer of Leaf Growth Ventures, he helps individuals and organizations unlock their true potential through purpose-driven strategies and his 4-leaf growth model. I was excited to connect with Mark through our $4 million strategies podcast, our 4-minute podcast, and that was a lot of fun. I was like, Mark, you got to come on to the Measureless podcast. You have so much depth and leadership. And one of my favorite parts of doing a recording podcast is talking about the stuff beforehand. Mark, share what you just went to in Mexico, because that was really cool.
Yeah. Carl, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciated getting a chance to meet you earlier. But 4 minutes it's not long enough for me. I can guarantee you that, and hopefully not for your listeners today. I'm really excited to speak to you. And I'll start by saying, I over the holidays, I had a chance to take a solo adventure for the first time ever. And I live in Kansas City, and I've lived all over the country, but people may know it gets kind of cold here in the winter. So I went to a retreat center called the Modern Elder Academy, which is about an hour north of Cabo San Lucas in the very tippy bottom of Baja, Mexico. And spent a week there, met some great people, had some great food, walked the beach, hiked, and also learned to surf. So I got way outside of my comfort zone and did some things that I've never done before. Surfing was always a bit of a bucket list thing. I'm not a bucket list guy for the most part. Maybe I need to start one. But that was always something I wanted to kind of do. But I think a great way to cap off 2024 and really start 2025 refreshed and reinvigorated and ready to hit the ground running.
I love it that you did that trip. That's something I have not done anything like that, meaning just go alone somewhere for a full week. I was mentioning to you, I'm getting ready to go on a trip just with my wife for a week, and that's uncommon for us, because typically we'd be bringing our kids along, and so it's a whole different experience, but alone, right? That's like for me, once again, I like being around with people, but obviously you were interacting. This wasn't like a silent retreat. You were actually connecting, getting to meet with people, and doing some really interesting things. So the surfing, did you actually legitimately be able to surf after the week there?
I mean, let's just say I learned to surf. I didn't say I was great at it. It's like when someone asks me, Mark, are you a golfer? And I'll say, well, I play golf, but to be called a golfer seems like it would intimate some higher degree of technical professionalism that I don't have. My dad was a brilliant golfer, played in college at the University of Kansas, and I didn't get those genes. And he was also a mechanical engineer / math major, and I didn't get that either. But I enjoyed the opportunity to learn something new. I've always been athletic all my life, and I thought, why not? If not now, when? So let's go do something we haven't done before. Let's stretch ourselves outside of our comfort zone. It was a great quote by a gal named Gina Milicic, which says, a comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. So I was trying to take that quote to heart and do some things that I'd never done before. And it's opened up my world to new possibilities that I had semi-closed. And I would encourage everybody to do something that allows you to grow. And they're called growing pains for a reason. It's not always easy. But oftentimes when we do grow and we get past the pain, the gain is so much worth it. And you just, again, new patterns, new possibilities emerge that you never would have seen yourself in had you not taken the leap.
I want to go back for the surfing thing just for a moment, because this is probably about 5 years ago. We were in Hawaii. Actually, we picked to do swimming lessons. So I was with my two boys, And I went out there, and I've never been a skateboarder. I'm not a skier. And so surfboarding is, once again, is even a bigger problem, right? It's water, right? You're trying to like
Mm.
balance thing on, which doesn't make any sense for me. Being able to balance the small, board, right, and be able to balance on it. And my challenge was getting from the body, right, to
Yeah.
popping up,
Hmm.
right, and
Yep.
getting up in the right spot, and then being able to balance from that part. Like I multiple times get close, and I have these a couple horrible pictures that my kids love laughing at me at, where I was like in not good form at all, and it looked like it was uncoordinated, which apparently with surfing I am. And so, anyways, I congratulate you on learning how to, because I don't think I could officially say I learned how to yet, but hopefully someday I'll get that opportunity down the road as well. So for those who haven't read your book, why did you write it? What were you trying to get
Mm.
across when you created this book to share with other people?
Yeah, and to be clear, you read some flattering comments in my introduction. I appreciate that. It's actually made me look somewhat smart and important, which sometimes I don't think I am. Um, but in this case, it was a really critical juncture in my career and in my life. We were living in Southern California at the time, and I was the president of a casual dining restaurant chain, about a $500 million in annual revenue, 145 locations in 24 states, and we were part of a publicly traded company based in Ohio. And I was recruited there from my position as the chief marketing officer for the Cheesecake Factory. And I was given the opportunity to become a president and have full P&L responsibility. But there were some, three key edicts. One, you got to help turn the brand around, down double-digit negative in sales. Two, you need to establish a new contemporary brand positioning because the brand had kind of gotten a little long in the tooth, and so did some of its clientele. And three, you've got to, develop, test, and implement a concept extension that could earn the capital for the right for future growth. And I'm a competitive son of a gun. And as much as I love the Cheesecake Factory, easily one of the best cultures I've ever worked for. And we'll talk about the importance of words and why I don't prefer the word culture. I actually prefer the word community, but we'll get there in a minute. Um, the challenge was great. The opportunity was fantastic to be part of this huge turnaround story that would be career defining. I was able to attract other people who saw the vision and helped make it even bigger and better than I could even envision it. We all worked tirelessly to help turn this brand around. And we, in 2 years, got it from double digit negative sales to positive growth. We did research and test and implement a new brand positioning, and then also a concept extension based on that positioning that would earn the right to capital. So now, being from Kansas, we like to say, we brought the witch's broom to the Wizard of Oz, and how come we're not, getting what we deserve? They decided instead, you guys have turned the brand around a little faster than we thought. We're going to see if we can sell it and see if we can get the highest multiple possible. But if we don't sell it, don't worry, you'll still be in place, and so will your team. And I'm sure whoever buys you, if we do sell it, will keep you because you guys have turned this brand around and made it attractive for a buyer. Well, sure enough, we found a strategic play. And while we had a lot of private equity firms doing the usual tire kicking, and none of us were excited about that, we found someone that owned other restaurant concepts and really fit our new brand positioning, actually had a few manufacturing facilities where we could source some of our products. So we thought this was the perfect marriage. Well, this was February 21st, around 2013. And again, in Southern California, that's about the sign or the time the first signs of spring start to emerge. Well, the deal closed on a Friday, and Monday morning at 8 o'clock, I'm supposed to have a meeting with the new CEO to plot our new future together. At 8:05, I'm out the door. We've
Wow.
decided to move in a different direction. And I'm like, what, over the weekend? So after a fitful night of sleep, Carl, I got up the next morning early and I took the dog out back to do his business. And as the sun was coming up over this wall in our backyard, it's shown on this fig tree that was barren from the 5 or 6 or 7 weeks of winter we do get in Southern California, unlike where you live in Oregon. And there on the end of one branch was this tiny little green sprig of a leaf just starting to bud. And it was in that moment I got this epiphany that a leaf is a symbol of growth and rebirth. We're always told it's always darkest before the dawn. In that case, it was. I had a terrible night of sleep because I thought I'd failed. I thought, how did I not see this coming? How was I so naive? And here I am in one of my darkest hours. And in that moment, when that sun shone on that one branch and that little tiny green sprig of a leaf was just starting to bud, I got inspired. I took the dog inside. I went into my office and I started banging out a treatment on my computer for this idea that a leaf is a symbol of growth and rebirth. But I also got to thinking, well, what happened? I was doing everything right. And I was leading with what I was told back then, and I think it's still a thing, the rule of threes. Suggests if you focus on three things, you'll have more productivity and greater focus on results and all that kind of good stuff. And my three things were leadership, engagement, and accountability. And I'd say Carl's doing a wonderful job of leading his team. Look at the results they're getting. Or Carl's holding his team accountable for results, or he's engaging his team on a deeper level and look what they're accomplishing. So it was built into my mantra. Every week I would go out in emails, and back in those days we had that kind of group voicemail that we could send out. It was part of reward and recognition, and everybody knew that's what I stood for, and that's what we collectively stood for: leadership, engagement, and accountability. And I wrote those three words down on a piece of paper next to my computer. And I go, we did all those things. Why do I feel like this? And it was there that I got this idea that fulfillment was not happening. I wasn't fulfilled. My team wasn't fulfilled. We were working our butts off, burning the candle at both ends, chasing numbers to just chase numbers, because we wanted to be part of this noble pursuit to turn this brand around, earn the right to capital, and grow it to become a leading brand in our category, only to be told we've decided to move in a different direction. Not very fulfilling. So I wrote that word down. And that's where I got this leaf growth model. It not only was a leaf a symbol of growth and rebirth, and all growth in any plant or tree happens through the leaf, through the magic of photosynthesis, right? And I wrote that down, and then I got to thinking, it's also an acronym. Leadership, Engagement, Accountability, Fulfillment stands for LEAF. And then I thought, well, that's interesting, but how does it all work together? And in this kind of idea of looking at nature, there's 4 seasons. And so I got to thinking there's a higher power of 4s, not the rule of 3s. My 4th thing was fulfillment. And you can't leave that out of any successful endeavor. Otherwise, you'll just be getting metrics of performance and not feeling fulfilled in the process. So then I started writing down this little image. It was a 4-circle Venn diagram with each letter, LEAF, in one of the circles. And I thought, well, okay, but what's at the epicenter? And I thought about that fig tree. And I said, it's growth, but not just growth, purposeful growth. And revolving around it, like the seasons, is this notion of always getting better, always growing, always learning. And so I created this 4-circle Venn diagram with that, and in the middle of it, purposeful growth. And I kind of built it out first as a presentation. And then I shared it with some different people, and they said, Mark, this is really pretty insightful. I've read a lot of business books. I've never seen a model like this. And I've never seen nature linked to business and leadership the way you've put it together. Have you thought about writing a book? And I'm like, I'm not a writer. No, I'm not thinking about writing a book. But after some urging, I started putting some thoughts on paper, and I put it away. It was like a cathartic hobby while I had a little time on my hands until my next opportunity. But I'd take it out on weekends, or I'd get up early and be inspired to kind of write some more, and maybe on vacation or in between jobs, because I kept going back to these C-level jobs, but not feeling like I had really found my calling. I loved what I did. I love building teams. I love building brands in that order. And I thought, well, how can I do that in a different way than just, insert C-level leadership position, wash, rinse, repeat, right? And that's when I got this idea that maybe this really needs to be a book. And I, finally got it done after about 7 years,
Wow.
8 all told. The idea was chasing me, and I finally allowed it to catch up. And literally a couple of years ago, it got published, and I'm happy to report it hit bestseller status. And now it's serves as the foundation for speaking and consulting opportunities, so I can help others along their growth journey.
Powerful story. Let's talk about that fulfillment a little bit more, because it makes sense. But I'm going to ask maybe a simple question, but maybe it's a little bit more difficult. What does fulfillment mean?
Boy, I'm glad you asked that, because I actually have that leading into one of the later chapters. As you will see throughout the book, I take that higher power of fours to heart, and you'll see that 4-circle Venn diagram in a lot of different places. Not that that's a model that works for everything. It doesn't, but it works for a lot of things. And if you think about it, there are 4 seasons, not 3. And I know which season most people would like to leave out: winter. Well, we couldn't leave out winter, because you wouldn't have the rejuvenation and the rebirth in the spring without that time. We have 4 directions, not 3. There are 4 chambers to the human heart, not 3. There are 4 elements to an atom, the source of life, not 3. And I could go on and on with this foreplay, but you get the idea. So I look at things that often people see 3 in, and sometimes I'm able, like a prism, twist it just a little bit and see a 4th thing lurking right there, sometimes in plain sight. So to answer your question, I think there's 4 key aspects of the human condition. There's fun, which is internal and very fleeting, and usually tied to an event. Like, I had fun at the concert last night. There is happiness, which is still internal, lasts a little longer. I'm happy at the moment, right? And then you kind of get to thinking externally. Then there's joy. Joy is often found in serving others. I feel a sense of joy when I'm in service to others. And I'm a big believer in servant leadership. That's a whole section of the book as well. And then I come upon the word fulfillment, because you could stop at joy, and people say, well, that's fine. But no, fulfillment now is not just a little bit longer. It's still internal, but to me, it's eternal. And it's finding something that fulfills you and makes the purpose that I think we all have for our lives in different seasons, not the same purpose for all of our life. It changes, right? But I think there's a red thread that's woven throughout all of our lives if we're looking for it. And for me, I didn't see it for a long time until I started getting really introspective in writing this book. I started my first job as a lifeguard. I taught lessons. I coached the swim team. And as I thought about it, I was in service to people, even at a young age in high school and college. And I got responsibility. I went up the ranks from, a guard to head guard, and managing the pool. And so I'm managing people's schedules. I'm managing money, everything I would do later in business, right? But the thread that was woven throughout all of it was being in service to people, making sure they had a good time, making sure they were safe, and making sure they would want to come back. And so then, as I thought about my career arc in, restaurant, hospitality, entertainment, and retail, it's all about being in service to others. And it's all about helping people have memorable experiences that are going to increase the value of whatever they paid for them, and want them to come back again and again and tell others. And so that idea of fulfillment to me is something that I can look back at some point in time. I can't really say I feel it in the moment as much, because I think it's something that is ongoing, which is why I'm a big believer that words matter. And so I don't necessarily like the word purpose. I prefer the word purposeful. A purpose is a noun, and it's something that you might like. Where's my purpose? Is it around here somewhere? I haven't found my purpose yet. Instead, I believe in being purposeful. And that means, what do you do with every day that you're given? I don't know much, Carl, but I do know this. Regardless of our age, gender, political persuasion, sexual orientation or preference, religious affiliation or not, time zone. I know this. There are 24 hours in a given day. Not one of us has given 1 minute more or 1 minute less. And so for me, being purposeful is, how do I intentionally use the 24 hours in my given day to move a little further, a step closer to what I feel called to do? And I think, to me, that's where fulfillment comes over time. It is not as fleeting like fun or even happiness. And enjoy, it comes from serving others, and you can be joyful and you can feel joy in a moment. But I think fulfillment and that idea of, at some point in time, looking back and saying, I felt called to this purpose, and I feel like I fulfilled the calling to the very best of my human capabilities.
When somebody hasn't, here, let me pull back in my question there. You've been fortunate enough to be in a lot of successful ventures, opportunities throughout your career, and you get to this point where you recognize, and I want to be careful of not overstaying because obviously I haven't met, but I run this a lot of our guests. We've got our home. We have probably somebody special in our life, maybe multiple people special in our life. We have our vehicles, our transportation, how we get around to places. We have our toys, so to speak. We have freedom to some extent, hopefully. Maybe not, but sometimes we do or don't, depending on what the situation is, a person. But they get to this point where pure money, for many of them, is really not meaningful anymore. Once they've gone past a certain point, right? And the data has showed this multiple times. Once you get past a certain point, you're not any happier, right?
Yeah, true.
Through that process. And so that's what I think is interesting. But when I see people who haven't reached there yet, they're running, they're chasing, they're trying to get towards, and as we know, many don't get there. But for those, when they finally do, it's like they race to the top and they go, and now what? You know what I'm saying? It's like now what it means once I've got taken care of my basic, at least what I believe to be my basic essentials, right? In a first world country, using that kind of terminology. When you are coaching other people or helping out organizations, how do you deal with that? What I call, at least one of the observations that I've seen often in the Measure Success podcast, where all of a sudden happiness and joy is not defined by an EBITDA, right? Yeah. It's fun to win. Don't get me wrong. I think winning is fun, and that's. I'm just sorry. I'm going to go on one more caveat here. We'll get your answer here where you're hanging on there like I'm ready.
I'm good.
I coached 25 seasons in sport. And one of the things that drove me bananas, when they say, we're doing this for fun. And I'll tell you what fun is. Fun is being successful with your pursuit of whatever sport it is. And fun is, and when you're doing your hardest and you end up with winning outcomes, that's fun.
Yeah.
But just to show up and to mess around or quote unquote say jokes or do something, that is very fleeting, very short term. And if you don't perform, it's not fun, if that makes sense. Right. Yeah. And so I'm not to say that people can't have fun being successful, but there's this, once again, there's this interesting, trajectory as you move forward. So what are the big ahas that you help people out with when they're coming to that realization themselves, and that there's more than just their retirement and getting a few notches, so to speak, on their status in their career?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot in there, Carl, and I'm going to try to peel back some of the layers the best I can. So the first thing I'll say is you're right. And whoever you interviewed and, probably had some of the same feelings I did, which is, you're climbing the ladder. And if you're a competitive son of a gun like I am, and you competed in sports all your life, you competed in school, you get rewarded based on your outcomes, right? You know, today, we like say kids get a trophy for participation. We didn't get that. You had to earn a medal in swimming as I was growing up. You had to earn a trophy, and only the top team got a trophy at the end of the season. And so that was my mentality. And I took it into all of the positions that I've ever had, which is about leading with a servant's heart, but also being damn competitive and holding people to high standards of excellence. Like I had the good fortune of being held. I've had some wonderful mentors who have walked alongside me to help teach and coach me how to lead in the right way. One of them was a gentleman named David Novak. When I was at Pizza Hut years ago as a young marketing executive, he was our head of marketing and then later became a bigwig within PepsiCo and co-founded and then was the CEO of Yum Brands when PepsiCo spun off the restaurant brands. One of the best leaders I've ever had, probably the best. Very inspirational. He loved big ideas. He says, Mark, big ideas are what build businesses and build brands. Okay. Always think bigger than you think is reasonable. But he also used recognition and reward. And as he became the head of Yum Brands, he started years ago at Pizza Hut with the Silver Pan Award that he'd give out in monthly marketing team meetings. And each month, a different person would win the award. And I remember one month my name was called for me to go up to the front of the room and stand next to him as he told everyone why I had won the award. And he handed the pan, got a picture. And that little pan engraved with my name and the date and all that kind of stuff probably cost about $1.50. But it was worth gold to me. And then he later took that and created all these different awards that the Pizza Hut Silver Pan Award became the Cheesehead Award. And then he had the Rubber Chicken Award for KFC. And then he had the Sauce Packet Award for Taco Bell. He'd take a picture with people and then he'd put them up in his office. And he filled the walls in his office. And then when his walls were filled, he put them on the ceiling. And when the ceiling was filled, he put them all up and down the hallway leading to his office. So everybody knew how important reward and recognition was to David. And he also led leadership training. Even though he was a CEO, he would lead leadership trainings because he wanted to make sure that people in certain positions got trained right. Another one was David Overton, who was the founder and CEO and chairman, still is, of the Cheesecake Factory. And from him, he had a different leadership style. He was just always about raising the bar of excellence to new levels, new heights. So in meetings, he'd carry with him and in the halls 4 or 5 different yellow pads. And he was old school. He'd take out a pencil in the meeting and he'd write something down. He'd switch over to another notepad, write something down. And everybody's like, what's he doing? He was like literally looking at the business through a broad lens and saying, what can we do to be excellent in each of these different areas, whether it's menu development, marketing, human resources, operations, restaurant design, because he would always ask the question, is this the best it could be? And the answer was always no. Just 2 examples of the importance of what role mentors can play in your life, whether they know it or not. The one thing I learned from being a leader is you're under a microscope. Everyone's watching everything you say and everything you do. Well, back to your question, I put together a purpose statement not that many years ago because I wanted to have something that guides me every single day. And to your point about money, I said, I don't want to just make money and retire. I want to make a difference and inspire. And that means making a difference in the lives of others and inspiring them to want to do likewise, which creates this virtuous cycle of reciprocity, or what I call in the book, paying it backward. And for me, that's where this idea of legacy comes in. Legacy isn't a concept that most people think of as, oh, that's bequeathing something of value to somebody after we're dead and buried. I look at living legacy instead of just something when you're dead, as we just talked about. What are you doing in the 24 hours you have of every day to lift people up? Who are you in service to? And so then I got back to drawing that four-circle Venn diagram, and I said, who am I in service to? There's myself, there's my relations, those I love and those who love me. There's my professional world. Who do I serve at work? And then there's my spiritual world. As someone who is religiously spiritual, I don't tell God on Sunday, hey, great seeing you. I got to go to work on Monday. I'll be back next week. I bring that into how I treat people. And so this idea of climbing the ladder and looking for fulfillment in you call it winning, and it is in many ways, but I hate the word failure, because I believe even those painful surfing lessons where I fell, I didn't fail because I tried, right? And so the words I prefer, it's like, if you either you win or you learn, and then at some point you're going to succeed. But if you only fail if you fail to try. So I put together kind of my North Star. I thought about who I'm in service to, and why is that important? Well, I'm sure most of your listeners or viewers have heard of Simon Sinek and his whole Start With Why movement, based on a successful TED Talk and book, and now a wonderful career he's built for himself as an influencer and thought leader. It's people want to know why you do what you do before they care how you do it or even what you do. And he called it his golden circle. And I got to thinking, I'm not sure that's right. Because as a marketing professional and a sales professional, we're always taught to start with who. Who's our target audience and how can we serve them? Not, here's my coat, it's wide open, full of watches, which one do you want to buy? And so I thought, well, I think who you serve is more important than why. Who you serve in those four realms of service, again, like a four-circle Venn diagram, they're all intertwined. They all make you a whole person, right? You're not just some automaton robotic worker. You're someone who has, a spiritual side, a relational side, and a personal side that goes with your professional side, and how they're all integrated and revolving around purposeful growth is what then leads you to your why, and which I believe is more about your motivations and your purpose. And then your how is, how are you uniquely gifted? What's your genius? And how are you investing that in your what? What are you doing with it? Right? And so that's how I break down the golden circle approach, which is three elements. And I see a fourth element, and I actually start with that. And to me, I'm trying to get people, like, I wrote the book as if I were trying to mentor a younger Mark Mears. Like, what would I tell him, knowing what I now know, the experiences I've now had, to pay it backward to help him along his journey? And I pray that for all the readers who can look at something and say, hey, yes, I've had some tremendous pinch me moments in my career, but I've also had some devastating gut punches. But they all make the journey what it is. Now, how can I pay it backward to help others along their growth journey? And maybe they can avoid some of the mistakes I made, or maybe they can look at some of the successes I've had and be inspired by them and think bigger for themselves. Because oftentimes our self-limiting beliefs are what keeps us in this prison cell of lack of fulfillment, lack of being who we're capable of being, lack of understanding the power of purpose and how it can guide our lives and really enrich not only ourselves, but those we serve.
Just got a couple minutes left here, so I want to go through a few quick questions, Mark. I think that was really powerful. I think in particular when you said who you serve, I think that was a really good question. We all should be asking, and who we serve is not necessarily always a person or a deity or God. Sometimes it's money. Sometimes it's a spouse. Sometimes it's our kids. Sometimes it's a sport, and recognizing why we serving that master, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important thing for all of us, right, to be asking that question. As we're the Measure Success podcast, if I may ask, how do you measure success today?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't look at it, like I said, I'm not here just to make money. I'm looking at how many lives can I impact. And when I say pay it backward, many of your viewers and listeners are probably going, well, Mark, isn't you say you're big on words, isn't the phrase pay it forward? And I say pay it backward because when I go to Starbucks, not only am I a growth junkie, I love growth in all of its forms, but I'm a coffee junkie, and particularly I love Starbucks. So when I go through the drive-through, I will not on a random act of kindness basis, but intentionally pay for the car behind me. Just did it this morning. And when I get up to the window, I'll tell the person or ask them, can I pay for the car behind me? Unless it's a mobile order, they'll say, oh, that'd be so nice. And I said, well, just do me a favor. Like, oh, sure, what? Just tell them, God bless you, your debt has been paid.
Oh,
And
wow.
they'll go, oh, man, that's cool. And then I'll drive away, look in the rearview mirror, and if there's one person, two people, three people, I don't know. They don't know me, I don't know them, but I'll say a silent prayer as I'm driving away because I don't know what they need that day. But I'm just saying, God help them, fulfill whatever they need to be blessed today. And there is something called the law of reciprocity, Carl, which is pretty clear. And I know we've all felt it. When someone does something nice for you, you feel a deep-seated urge to do something nice for somebody else, and oftentimes in greater measure, right? So what I'm told is that not, again, random act of kindness, but intentional act of kindness is often repeated from a car behind them to the car behind them to the car behind them. And it's a cool thing to feel like you're making exponential impact. And kind of like when you throw a pebble in the pond, right? You don't ever see the pebble again, it's under the water, but you see the ripple effect on top of the water. And I'm imagining the second act of my life and career of creating this ripple effect. And I want to, build on this successful book. I'm writing a new one. And it's really more building off the Purposeful Growth Revolution, 4 ways to grow from leader to legacy builder. And now it's about putting the human back in human resources. And I say to do so, all we need is love. Not the kind of love that's going to get you a quick call from HR and escorted out of the building by security, but it's a new model building on the LEAF growth model. This is the love model, which stands for listen, observe, value, and empower. And while we don't have time to break it all down, I think you can understand those are 4 very fundamental human needs. Going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, when you get past food, water, safety, and reproductive sex, you get into this whole idea of people need to feel seen and heard. They need to feel valued. And like that rule of threes, we could stop there. But the 4th element is so powerful, Carl, I believe it has to be said. Empowered to not only be their very best, but to grow up into their purpose. Listen, observe, value, and empower. And that's how we're going to create communities of belonging instead of just cultures of conforming. The word community is a powerful word because culture is a place someone may feel merely a part of. That's not bad. But a community is a place they feel they belong in. And belonging makes all the difference. In this world of DEI backlash, like, are you kidding me? It's because you're doing it wrong. You think about diversity gets us in the room. That's great. Equity gives us an equal voice, better yet. Inclusion gets us a seat at the table. Holy crap, that's awesome. But if we don't feel like we belong, we're likely not going to feel psychologically safe to be vulnerable to give our very best. We're going to just be happy to be in the room where it happens. And that's not good for anybody. And usually what happens if they don't feel like they belong, they're going to leave and someone's going to go, oh, Carl was really bright. And when we hired him, we really thought we were getting someone with a unique skill set and diverse talents. And he didn't really say much in meetings, maybe because he didn't feel like he belonged. So creating communities of belonging is really what younger people want today. Millennials and Gen Z, according to a recent Deloitte study, say almost 90% of them want purpose at work. And they've kind of taken this whole work-life balance myth, this whole linear path that my dad and myself took, which is work hard, get good grades, get a job, get promoted, get married, have a few kids, make enough money to maybe send them to college and put away some money and somewhere around the age of 65 right off into retirement. Today, young people don't want to be managed and required. They want to be led and inspired. And so the way I measure impact is how many people am I getting to not only listen, but to take heart this message, to transform that tired old command and control management style that no longer serves us into a more relational, humanistic leadership style for the benefit of all four stakeholders, our team members, our customers or guests, and our business partners, anybody in our business ecosystem, and our communities. And it's one reason why I'm part of Conscious Capitalism Incorporated. It's a global organization whose mission aligns very much with my own and what I'm talking about, which is elevating humanity through business. If we don't leverage the resources that businesses have, we've already seen that governments have proven ineffective at getting after some of the world's biggest challenges. Religious organizations and nonprofits, while well-meaning, can only do so much, but businesses have the resources, and we need to look at that fourth stakeholder. Most people think it stops with the business partners and profit, but look again at that prism, twist it a bit different, and understand the value you can have in your community. It is not purpose or profit, it's purpose and profit. Because with purpose, you're going to attract and keep better team members. You're going to differentiate your brand or service among your customers. You're going to create more wealth and prosperity for your business partners. It's going to do more good in your community.
Mark, this has been fantastic. And your depth of your soul and how you've been able to eloquently talk through this has been very powerful. This has been absolutely fantastic. Mark, how can people connect and learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, thanks, Carl. I appreciate it. And it's real simple. You can go to my website at markamears, MEARS.com, and there you'll find a purposeful growth self-assessment. It takes about 5, 6, 7 minutes to fill out online. And when you're done, I will send you back a custom PDF report with your scores, as well as some seeds for growth from yours truly. And that will give you a bit of a benchmark as to where are you on this journey of finding purpose in both your life and your work. And if this is of interest to you, let's connect on LinkedIn. And, you can follow me. I'll follow you back. Let's get connected. And you can subscribe to my monthly newsletter. And I want to hear from you because, again, as a growth junkie, I love to learn from others. And I don't have all the answers. So let's not just connect. Let's do so on a deeper level so we can learn from each other.
Mark, thank you so much for being a guest on the Measure Success podcast today.
My pleasure, Carl. Thank you.
And everyone else who's listening, I hope you enjoyed. This has been a really powerful podcast. Once again, I encourage you, if you haven't already, to purchase his book, The Purposeful Growth Revolution. And once again, 4 ways to grow from leader to legacy builder. That is once again by Mark A. Mears. I encourage you to look that up, buy a copy of it. And once again, as we always like to say, it's a privilege for us that you are listening to our podcast. We encourage you to share and like it. And those comments we appreciate every single day. With that, we'd like to say wishing you the very best and measure your success. Have a great day.